In the heart of Houston, Texas, a seemingly ordinary marriage hides a dark secret that would end in tragedy. Marcus Johnson, a devoted husband, had always believed he knew his wife, Ebony Davis. But when a shocking truth comes to light, their lives spiral into chaos. This true crime documentary delves into a story filled with betrayal, identity, and the devastating consequences of hidden secrets. What began as a love story quickly transforms into a grim tale of deception and violence. Join us as we explore the cracks in their relationship, the shocking discovery that shattered their world, and the tragic murder that sent shockwaves through their community. This is not just a story about a crime, it's a chilling reminder of how easily trust can be broken and lives can be irrevocably changed. Get ready to uncover the haunting details of a crime that left many questioning how well they really know those closest to them. Marcus Johnson and Ebony Davis seemed like the perfect couple. Friends often described them as a match made in heaven, young, vibrant, and deeply in love. They met during their college years at Texas Southern University, where they bonded over their shared dreams and ambitions. Marcus was pursuing a degree in business, while Ebony was studying psychology. Their connection was immediate, and after graduation they married in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by family and friends. The couple settled in a cozy neighborhood in Houston, where they built a life filled with love and laughter. They shared common interests, from attending music festivals to volunteering at local charities. However, beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect life, shadows lurked. While Marcus thrived in his career as a financial analyst, Ebony's career in mental health seemed to stall. Friends noticed that she often struggled with her self-image, but she brushed off their concerns with a smile. As time passed, subtle changes in Ebony's behavior became noticeable. She began to withdraw from social gatherings, preferring to stay home. While Marcus was often busy with work, he trusted that Ebony would be all right on her own. He admired her independence and believed that she was simply focusing on personal growth. But as weeks turned into months, the distance between them grew. Little did he know that the love of his life was harboring a secret that would soon shatter their world. In the months leading up to the tragic event, Ebony found solace in online communities, where she engaged with individuals who shared her struggles. It was a space where she felt understood and accepted, but it also became a breeding ground for deceit. The lines between her online persona and her real life began to blur, and as she explored her identity, she started to question the very foundation of her marriage. Ebony's friends noticed the shift in her demeanor, commenting on her late-night phone calls and secretive texts. Although Marcus dismissed their concerns, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He longed for the intimacy they once shared and began to sense a growing chasm between them. Yet, he held on to hope, believing that communication could mend their fraying bond. As the couple navigated their challenges, they remained unaware of the impending storm. Their world was about to be rocked by an unexpected revelation, one that would force them to confront the truth no matter how painful it might be. As the months rolled by, the cracks in Marcus and Ebony's relationship became increasingly evident. The couple had once thrived on mutual support and understanding, but now their conversations felt strained. Marcus, caught up in the demands of his job, failed to notice the subtle signs of distress in Ebony. She, on the other hand, grew resentful of his absence, feeling more like a roommate than a partner. The tension reached a breaking point during a weekend getaway they had planned in an attempt to reconnect. Instead of rekindling their romance, the trip only highlighted their differences. Marcus was eager to spend quality time together, while Ebony was preoccupied with her phone, lost in the online world that had become her escape. As the sun set over the beautiful Texas landscape, the couple found themselves sitting in silence, the weight of unspoken words heavy between them. During that trip, a confrontation erupted. "You're always on your phone. Do you even care about us anymore?" Marcus finally exclaimed, frustration spilling over. Ebony, taken aback, shot back, "You wouldn't understand. You're never around. I feel like I'm living in a shadow of who I used to be." The argument felt like a boiling pot, and with each word, the heat intensified. It was in these moments of vulnerability that Ebony revealed her struggles with identity and self-worth. She confessed to feeling lost and unsure of who she was outside of being a wife. Marcus listened, realizing that while he was focused on providing for their future, he had neglected the emotional needs of his partner. Yet, even as they attempted to mend their relationship, the seeds of doubt began to take root in Ebony's mind. During the following weeks, their attempts at communication fell flat. Every time they broached the subject of their issues, it seemed to spiral into more conflict. Ebony began to confide in friends, sharing her feelings of isolation and insecurity. Unbeknownst to Marcus, she sought comfort in a newfound friendship that would ultimately lead her down a treacherous path. As Ebony's online persona flourished, she became increasingly entangled in a web of lies. Her desire for acceptance transformed into a dangerous obsession, and soon she was hiding parts of her life from Marcus. He noticed changes in her behavior, but his growing suspicions were met with defensive explanations. "I'm just busy with work," she would insist, brushing off his concerns as paranoia. Their relationship, once filled with love and trust, was now marked by secrecy and doubt. It became clear that the foundation of their marriage was crumbling, and the once inseparable couple was drifting further apart. While Marcus yearned for clarity and understanding, Ebony's internal struggle deepened, ultimately setting the stage for a devastating discovery that would change everything. One fateful afternoon, everything changed when Marcus returned home early from work, hoping to surprise Ebony with a romantic dinner. He entered the house, the familiar scent of her favorite candles filling the air, but there was an unsettling stillness. As he called out her name, a sense of dread washed over him. The living room was dimly lit, and Ebony's phone lay abandoned on the coffee table. Curiosity piqued, Marcus glanced at the screen. A series of messages from an unknown contact caught his eye, and his heart raced. The words were intimate, filled with longing and affection, everything he believed he had with Ebony. "I can't wait to see you again," one message read, followed by another that simply said, "You're the only one who understands me." Marcus felt a surge of emotions, confusion, anger, and betrayal. He knew he shouldn't invade her privacy, but the nagging feeling in his gut urged him to dig deeper. As he opened the messaging app, he discovered a hidden world of conversations that revealed a shocking truth about his wife. The messages revealed Ebony's struggles with her identity, but also hinted at something darker. She had been involved in an online relationship with a man named David, someone she had never mentioned before. He was a figure from her online community, someone who seemed to understand her pain in ways Marcus could not. As he read the messages, Marcus felt as though the ground had been pulled from beneath him. His mind raced as he tried to process the betrayal. He had always thought their love was strong enough to withstand anything, but this revelation shattered that illusion. Feeling as if he had been living a lie, Marcus's heart sank. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the realization that the woman he thought he knew was hiding a significant part of herself. Consumed by emotions, Marcus decided to confront Ebony. He needed answers, and he deserved the truth. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows across their home, Marcus prepared for what would be one of the most difficult conversations of his life. When Ebony arrived home, the atmosphere felt charged with unspoken tension. Marcus sat on the couch, his heart pounding as he prepared for the confrontation that lay ahead. Ebony greeted him with a warm smile, but it quickly faded when she sensed something was off. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Not really," Marcus replied, his voice steady but strained. He gestured for her to sit down, his mind racing with the flood of emotions battling for control. "We need to talk." The room felt heavy as he laid out the truth he had uncovered. "I found your messages," he said, each word hanging in the air like a ticking time bomb. "Who is David? Why were you lying to me?" His voice cracked, betraying the pain he felt. Ebony's face paled, shock washing over her features. "Marcus, I can explain," she stammered, but he interrupted her. "Explain what? How you've been living a double life? How you've been hiding this from me?" The hurt in his voice cut deep, and tears welled in his eyes. "I thought we were partners, Ebony. I thought we shared everything." For a moment, silence enveloped them as Ebony searched for the right words. "I was confused," she finally admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought I was reaching out for help, for understanding. I didn't mean for it to go this far." As she spoke, Marcus felt a mixture of anger and compassion. He could see the turmoil in her eyes, the conflict between the woman he loved and the person she had become. "But you lied to me, Ebony. You let me believe we were okay while you were confiding in someone else," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "I never wanted to hurt you," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I just wanted someone who understood what I was going through. I felt so alone." The vulnerability in her tone tugged at his heartstrings, but it wasn't enough to erase the betrayal. "Do you love him?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air, sharp and raw. Ebony hesitated, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, Marcus, I don't love him. I was lost. I thought he was someone I could turn to, but I see now how wrong I was." Despite her desperate pleas, Marcus felt a wall forming between them. The trust they once shared had crumbled, leaving behind shards of their past. In that moment, he realized that their relationship might never return to what it once was. As the confrontation escalated, emotions boiled over. Words were exchanged that could never be taken back. Painful accusations and hurtful truths that would linger long after the night was over. Eventually, exhausted from the emotional toll, Marcus stood up, his heart heavy with the weight of betrayal. "I need time," he said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "I can't do this right now." Days turned into weeks as Marcus and Ebony navigated the fallout from their confrontation. The emotional aftermath left both of them in a state of turmoil. Marcus felt betrayed, lost in a whirlwind of anger and heartbreak, while Ebony struggled to comprehend the reality of her actions. One evening, Ebony, consumed by guilt and desperation, decided to reach out to David one last time. She sent him a message, asking to meet in person. She hoped to find closure and move on from the chaos that had consumed her life. David agreed to meet her at a local park, a place they had often discussed but had never visited together. When the day arrived, Ebony felt a mix of excitement and dread. As she drove to the park, she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. What would she say? Would David understand the turmoil she had been through? Would he even care? As she pulled into the parking lot, her thoughts raced. Meanwhile, Marcus, sensing that something was off, decided to follow Ebony. After days of restless nights and an unshakable feeling that something was amiss, he couldn't shake the thought that she might be seeing David again. The bitter taste of betrayal lingered, and he needed to confront her once more. As he parked his car nearby, Marcus watched as Ebony approached a figure sitting on a bench. It was David. The sight of them together sent a wave of anger crashing over him. He felt betrayed all over again, but this time the pain was sharper, fueled by jealousy and hurt. From his hiding spot, Marcus could see the two of them talking animatedly, their expressions intense. It felt like an invasion of privacy, but he couldn't look away. As their conversation escalated, he noticed Ebony's demeanor shift. She appeared agitated, her hands trembling as she gestured passionately. Suddenly, something snapped inside Marcus. The raw emotions boiling within him urged him to confront them. He stepped out from the shadows, his heart racing as he approached the bench. "What the hell is going on here?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the park. Ebony and David looked up, shock and fear etched on their faces. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" Ebony exclaimed, her voice shaking. "You have to be kidding me," he replied, anger radiating from him. "After everything, you still think it's okay to meet him?" "Marcus, please! It's not what you think," Ebony pleaded, desperation evident in her eyes. But Marcus was beyond reason. The pain of betrayal had morphed into something darker. David, sensing the tension, stood up to intervene. "Listen, man, this is between us. You need to back off," he said, trying to assert control over the situation. That was the last straw for Marcus. Blinded by rage, he lunged at David, and a violent struggle ensued. In the heat of the moment, everything spiraled out of control. The confrontation turned deadly as emotions clashed in a storm of anger and resentment. A scuffle broke out, and in a split second Marcus reached for a nearby object, a rock, and struck David with all his strength. The moment felt like slow motion as the chaos unfolded. Ebony screamed, horrified at the sight before her. Marcus stood frozen, shock and regret flooding his senses. David collapsed to the ground, blood pooling around him, and the reality of what he had done crashed over Marcus like a tidal wave. As the sirens wailed in the distance, Ebony rushed to David's side, her heart racing with fear and disbelief. "What have you done, Marcus?" she cried, her voice a mix of anguish and disbelief. Realizing the weight of his actions, Marcus fell to his knees, trembling as the gravity of the situation settled in. He had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and the world he once knew had shattered in an instant. The murder of David shocked the Houston community, sending ripples of disbelief and horror through the neighborhood. News of the violent confrontation spread quickly, with the local media outlets clamoring for details. Headlines blared, framing the story as a tragic tale of love gone wrong and jealousy turned deadly. Friends and neighbors of Marcus and Ebony were left in a state of shock, struggling to comprehend how a seemingly ordinary couple could become embroiled in such a horrific event. Social media buzzed with speculation, opinions divided between those who supported Marcus and those who condemned his actions. He must have been driven to madness, some argued, while others labeled him a cold-blooded murderer. Ebony found herself thrust into the spotlight as well, her past scrutinized and dissected by the press. Interviews with friends revealed the struggles she faced, painting a complex picture of a woman caught between two worlds. "She was always so loving, but there was something off in recent months," a close friend remarked, reflecting on the changes in Ebony's behavior. The media frenzy reached a fever pitch as reporters camped outside the couple's home, seeking answers and insight into the events that led to the tragic murder. Television broadcasts aired sensationalized versions of the story, fueling public interest and speculation. The hashtags #JusticeForDavid and #FreeMarcus began trending, each reflecting the polarized views of a community grappling with the implications of the crime. As the days turned into weeks, the emotional toll on both families became apparent. Marcus's parents expressed disbelief at the charges against their son, insisting he was not a violent person. "He loved Ebony. This isn't who he is," they pleaded, but the evidence spoke for itself. Ebony, on the other hand, faced the weight of her decisions. The betrayal that had ignited this tragic series of events was now at the forefront of public discourse. "I never wanted any of this," she said in a tearful interview. "I just wanted to be happy." The community struggled to find closure. Each member left to grapple with the impact of a crime that shattered lives and exposed the fragility of trust. As the investigation unfolded, the legal proceedings against Marcus began to take shape. He was charged with manslaughter, and the court dates were set. The case attracted significant media attention, with each hearing drawing crowds of spectators eager to witness the unfolding drama. During the initial arraignment, Marcus appeared before the judge, his demeanor a mixture of remorse and confusion. He struggled to come to terms with the reality of his situation, the weight of his actions hanging heavy on his shoulders. He pleaded not guilty, claiming he acted in the heat of passion, overwhelmed by emotions during the confrontation with David. As the prosecution prepared its case, they painted a picture of a man driven to violence by jealousy and betrayal. They presented evidence of the events leading up to the murder, including the history of Ebony's online relationship with David. The prosecution argued that Marcus had acted recklessly and without regard for the consequences of his actions. The defense, on the other hand, sought to humanize Marcus, emphasizing his loving nature and the emotional turmoil he had experienced leading up to that fateful day. They called upon friends and family to testify about his character, hoping to portray him as a man pushed beyond his limits by betrayal and confusion. Witness testimonies from those close to the couple shed light on the complexities of their relationship, but the court remained focused on the singular moment that changed everything. As the legal battle continued, the stakes grew higher for both Marcus and Ebony, their lives forever altered by a tragic series of events that unfolded in a moment of rage. After weeks of emotional testimony and intense legal arguments, the jury finally reached a verdict in the case of Marcus Johnson. As the courtroom gathered for the announcement, the air was thick with tension. Ebony sat in the front row, her heart pounding as she anxiously awaited the outcome of the trial. When the jury returned, the courtroom fell silent. The judge addressed the room, his voice steady as he read the verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Marcus Johnson, guilty of voluntary manslaughter." A collective gasp echoed throughout the courtroom, and Marcus's face drained of color as he absorbed the weight of the decision. While the verdict brought a sense of closure to some, it also opened old wounds. The judge imposed a sentence of 10 years in prison, a punishment that left Marcus and his family in shock. "This wasn't supposed to happen," his mother cried, her tears flowing freely as she embraced her son one last time before he was led away. For Ebony, the verdict served as a harsh reminder of the consequences of her actions. The guilt of having been the catalyst for such a tragic event weighed heavily on her heart. She felt torn between relief that Marcus would not face a life sentence and despair for the life that had been lost. In the months that followed the trial, the media circus continued, but the focus shifted to the healing process for those affected by the tragedy. The community struggled to come to terms with the events that had unfolded, and support groups formed for victims of violence and the families left in its wake. As Marcus served his time, he began to reflect on the choices that led him down this path. In prison, he found solace in writing, channeling his pain into poetry and letters that he hoped would one day be shared with Ebony. Ebony, meanwhile, sought therapy to navigate her own feelings of guilt and remorse. She attended support groups for victims of domestic violence, using her experience to help others while trying to find a way to forgive herself. In their own ways, both Marcus and Ebony began to grapple with the reality of their situation, each facing the long road to healing and forgiveness that lay ahead. The scars of their past would remain, but they held on to hope for a better future. A future where they could learn from their mistakes and ultimately find peace. The tragic story of Marcus Johnson and Ebony Davis serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of hidden secrets. Their lives were forever altered by betrayal and emotional turmoil, leading to a senseless act of violence that shattered not only their world, but also that of the people around them. As Marcus reflects on his past from behind bars, he grapples with regret and seeks redemption through his writing, while Ebony finds healing in her advocacy for mental health and emotional awareness. Together, they embody the complex nature of love, showcasing how jealousy and misunderstanding can lead to irreversible actions. Ultimately, their story teaches us the importance of open communication and emotional honesty in relationships. It encourages us to confront our insecurities before they fester into something destructive. In a world where love can quickly turn to rage, we must remember that healing and understanding are possible, even in the wake of tragedy. Their journey, marked by pain, growth, and the hope for forgiveness, serves as a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit.